it's not a matter of being good enough anymore. It's just an interest in seeing how far I can take this human experience. Like I'm really, really content and feel a lot of gratitude and very proud about a lot of things in my life.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Overstock Dixie. You can go like and follow their Instagram. There's new items that pop up on there every day, multiple times a day. Anything from furniture to tools, electronics, pretty much anything you're looking for. Hey guys, welcome back to the Derek Legg podcast. We're back in the vault again today. I messed up our episode number last week with Blake because we split that part 1, part 2 with my brothers. Blake's was actually 101. So today we're doing 102. I've got a guest in here today. We're going to get down some rabbit holes, and he's got a cool story. He's been on a few other podcasts. So I kind of have a little bit of background, but we're going to dive in. Today we've got Ryan Lelf.
You nailed it.
All right. Lelf like self. That's what he told me. So don't mess it up, Derek.
Great job, buddy.
How's it going, man?
Oh, man, we're having a great time. We're out here on vacation.
I love it.
My wife, Caroline, and my mom, Glenda, and our 4 children. We have 3 boys and a girl. Our oldest son, Addison's 17. Our daughter, Atlanta, is 13. We have another son, Arthur, who's 11. And then we have our surprise boy, Arrow. He's 19 months.
Yeah.
So there's all 7 of us out here, and we've been enjoying the sights and the mountains and the weather and Zion National Park. And
you're from?
Oklahoma. We live in Tulsa, Oklahoma currently.
Yeah. So when Mallory was telling me you were coming out, so I love the in-person. Like I know you guys were on Solid and you kind of did a Zoom thing, right?
We did.
And
I've known Brandon and Jeff though for a really long time. So yeah.
Like the Zooms are fine. I don't have any problem with them, but if we can, I'm like, let's push the episode off till we can get you here in person type of thing. So
for sure. I mean, it just brings a different energy, an element of intimacy, if you will. And, you know, anytime you can look someone in the eye and you can feel what they're saying,
right?
And you can sense it, or your hair stands up, or the energy coming from their heartbeat is palatable. It has a different impact, a different effect on you.
Yeah,
so,
it's almost like, to me, it's like watching a game on the TV versus live. It's like I'm still entertained on the TV, but it's nothing like being there live.
Yeah, you just can't feel it the way you feel it when you're there.
Right.
But sometimes when you're there, you're like, I'd really like to see that on HD replay, you know? It happened so fast, I kind of missed it.
That's a good point.
And you take it for granted that it's really not that one's better than the other. They're just uniquely different. And so what I do is I've just learned to practice. If I'm watching it on TV, I just appreciate the components that come with that. And then if I'm fortunate to go to a live game, I just have a different factor of appreciation and gratitude for other components that experience gives me.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I mean, I like sitting on my couch and watching the TV and grabbing a drink when I want, but man, being there live, I haven't done a ton of live sports, but when we have, I've loved it.
Yeah, I've got a few on my bucket list. I haven't been to a professional hockey game yet, but I hear going live is just something incredible.
Yeah, there's I don't know what they call it in hockey, but like a AAA team, like a farm team up in northern Utah.
Okay.
So I went to one of those, but that's the closest I've gotten in hockey.
Oh, wow. How was that?
It was a blast.
Yeah.
And I don't even understand all the rules 100%.
Right.
but like I would not watch hockey on the TV because I don't understand
either.
it. But
Correct.
live was way better.
Live was awesome, huh?
And then like I'm a big NFL fan, never been to an NFL game ever.
Wow.
But I've been to a ton of basketball
And Vegas
games.
isn't that far away from here now.
I know.
You know, that stadium from the outside is insane. Like I would love to take a tour of that thing.
Yeah, just driving by it. You're just like, what in the world?
It is some sight to see, bro.
Yeah, and you can't miss it.
No.
And hangs over the freeway.
Yeah.
So well, that first year the Raiders were here was COVID. Or coming off COVID, so it was vaccines.
Oh, mercy.
And then it was just last year, I think. My timeline right? Anyway, I haven't made it down, but that's the goal.
Yeah, that'll be
down
fun.
there and watch one. But I don't love traveling.
Okay.
but that's how my wife gets me out to go places. So for example, she knows like a couple of my stadium bucket lists. And I grew up loving baseball, played baseball, excelled at it the most. And like Yankee Stadium and Wrigley Field have been my bucket lists. And
I've been to both, thankfully.
Yeah.
I'm a big St. Louis Cardinal fan.
Are you? Okay.
I mean, it's died off some recently just because we're so active with our children, and my wife and I play a lot of pickleball.
Yeah.
So I don't really watch it and follow it to the level that I did. But my late father, he was a diehard fan his whole life. I mean, he probably hardly ever missed a Cardinal game, you know?
Wow.
And we went to lots of games live at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. But yeah, a few years ago, my oldest son and I, we got an experience at Wrigley Field, and we got to watch the Cardinals play against the Cubs twice and win both games.
Nice.
And my son got a ridiculous amount of signatures on like his shirt and his hat and his ball. I mean, it was just insane.
So cool.
Like I've never experienced a live baseball game where we got that many people to sign.
Yeah.
Like it was just magical, you know?
Well, I remember like walking up to it, and I was just kind of like, oh, I've seen it on the TV a million times, right? And walking up the steps up to Wrigley, and you start to see the green wall, and you start to see I mean, it hit me. I was like, man, I didn't think I was going to have this. Like, I'm actually getting like chills right now just thinking about it.
There's just epic places. I mean, I'd like to go to Fenway Park, and I'd love to actually get a ticket and sit up on top of the Green Monster.
Yeah.
That just seems really cool.
I mean, it's
know?
just iconic. Right?
Yeah, and I'd love to go to Lambeau Field in Green Bay, you know.
Yeah. So
and
my wife's like, hey, I've got a work thing in Chicago. Do you want to go? I'm like, not really. She's like, well, I looked up the schedule and the Cubs have a home game. And I'm like, well, I guess we're going.
Man, she's a keeper, bro.
That's how she gets me out of the house.
I love it. I love it, man. It's very thoughtful, actually.
Yeah. But we had a blast. I liked Chicago a lot when we went up there.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I still got to hit Yankee. Yeah. And then most of the football ones are on there. I just haven't gotten there yet. It's just not my season yet to go traveling around doing all that.
I'm with you. I used to think that's something I wanted to do was like, you know, take like a huge, long, extended road trip and visit like every stadium. And I don't know, maybe I'll want to do that again if it like worked out. But one thing that's transitioned for me interesting is like, I just don't enjoy watching others play sports when I'm having so much fun in my 40s playing my own again. Yeah. And it just has brought back such wonderful memories being a kid and playing sports, baseball, and then basketball, and then tennis, and then I loved playing basketball in high school. And like, you kind of forget that you get nervous, you know, when you're competing, and you kind of forget like what's involved when you have to show up and put on a uniform and play a game. And so interesting enough, like, just since my wife and I really got into pickleball and playing all these tournaments around the U.S. and stuff and compete at a pretty high level, like I feel like I'm a better dad. Like I it's just been so long. I mean, I'm out of high school like 20 some years. Like, how was I supposed to remember how nervous they get and how much they are wanting to perform, like, so that you are proud of them? And it's like, well, but I'm already proud of you, but yet it's just kind of built into the DNA.
Yeah.
And it's just been cool because like my 11-year-old son is just way more competitive and way more interested in like working out and trying to improve and get better and has all these goals. Whereas my daughter, I mean, she really enjoys it, but she's not really looking to push herself beyond just, I wouldn't say she does the minimum. She's a great teammate, solid player, very coachable, but she's not going to really practice outside of practice.
I got you.
But she just loves the camaraderie. She loves being on the team. And it's just one thing she loves. She also loves band, and she has other interests. And what she's taught me is that she's not interested in any like coaching from me or strategy. Really, the best thing I can do is just tell her how much I love watching her play.
Interesting.
And so I'm not sure if we're really the teacher in the parent-child relationship. I'm starting to think maybe the way it's actually set up is they're our teacher.
Yeah, if you can look through that lens.
Yeah. So I think the invitation is not to think you're supposed to mold children into a certain thing. it's more to be in awe and wonder and discover who they evolve into and who they become, and just be so grateful that you get to be along for the ride.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a Tyler Campbell on here and we talked a little, it's just coming back to my mind, and I loved how he said this. So Tyler Campbell, he's super deep voice. He's, I don't know, 6'2", 6'3", ex-Marine, just jacked. And we were talking, he talked about, he was working with these two guys years ago, and they were talking about kids, and I think it was like pornography or being gay. It was something like that.
Okay.
And the two other guys were like, I would disown my kid. I would this and this, or I'd beat my kid. I'd lock them up if they came home and they were this person. Right.
Right.
And put whatever you want to that. It was just not what they thought their kid should be. That's the point I'm getting at. Right.
Right.
And big ex-Marine tough guy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and the thing I thought about was that kid just needs a hug. Like, that kid needs to know that his dad loves him. And he needs to know his dad supports him. And he went through this whole thing. I was not expecting it, because again, it was like this macho thing that I was almost like, okay, we're going to get macho on this. And then he just got soft on the whole thing. And I don't mean that negatively, but he just,
I'm tracking 100% with you. In fact, it's interesting. You asked me before we started if there was anything specific that I wanted to talk about, and I didn't really have an answer for you, but I do now.
Okay, let's do it.
So I think my overarching life philosophy at this point, I'm 43 years old, is summed up in a quote by Rumi, R-U-M-I. And then I'd love to elaborate, because you just teed me up for something I'm actually pretty passionate about. And the quote says, "Beyond the ideas of right and wrong, there is a field, and I will meet you there."
Yeah, break that down.
So what most people, I believe, are doing, and what I did for so long, based on the programming and the conditioning that I was given in the environment I was born into and raised in, is most people are trying to figure out the right way to live so that then they can tell everyone else what they should be doing. And when you go beyond that and you enter into this field, a field of consciousness, something greater than that, I think you realize that's kind of a silly idea. Because how many people, you've had 102 episodes now, and if we all told you what we thought was the right way to live, wouldn't you just have 110 different ideas and versions of what the right way to live would look like?
Exactly.
And how you are supposed to carry that out? So how do you then set aside 101 opinions and go, but this one is the actually accurate one?
Right.
And I've nailed it. But isn't that how most people live?
Yeah.
So they get convicted, not realizing most of their convictions or their beliefs or their concepts were not theirs. They weren't born with those. They were born into an environment, and then when their brain was at the stage of like a sponge and their subconscious was being developed, that happened to be what was sticking. So then that formed their truth, and they thought they were right, and anything that pushed against that or was different, most people consider wrong. So is it right or wrong for a person to be in a heterosexual relationship or a homosexual relationship? And people will give you all the reasons as to why their understanding around that subject matter is right or wrong. Is it right or wrong for parents to allow their children to sleep with them and have them in their bed with them? Is it right or wrong to talk about how much you give and your generosity or your, how do you say that word? Like if you're philanthropist, I can't even say the word, but
I know what word you're saying.
Yeah. Like, so is it right or wrong if one person feels like they want to do that in private? And is it right or wrong if someone decides they want to do that more publicly? Is it right or wrong on whether or not you're a morning person or you're a late night owl? And won't anybody who's convicted or believe they've cracked some code or figured out some formula or decided that this is how you get XYZ result, they'll tell you why their way is right.
Right.
And yet, if you expand your world big enough, what I've discovered is there's an outlier to everyone's understanding, interpretation, and one way that they decided is the one and only right way. There's that outlier. Like, is there only one way to overcome cancer? I mean, is there only one way to eat?
Right.
And is everyone who's eating differently than you completely wrong? And where is the spectrum? When do you ever know if you're good enough to finally feel like you've nailed it and you are doing it the right way? Does a certificate show up in the mail? Does lightning strike a certain number of times?
Yeah, are you just extremely successful and everybody praises you? Yeah, I know you're 100% right. I'm kind of going through this transition right now where I talk a lot. I mean, that's kind of where the podcast comes from. And I'll sit down with friends and family and my mom and my wife and go through things. And I'm kind of just turning the switch to like, well, what do I think is right? And I'm trying to push that, not without having any outside input, but I'm understanding that I'm the one that's responsible for the decisions that I'm making and the environment I'm setting my kid into. So I feel what you're saying. I kind of feel like I'm hitting that. But what's interesting is I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if it's going to be right. But so what do you do?
And what would be the measuring stick?
Right.
How would anyone be able to verify that they're right and anybody else seeing it different is wrong?
Right.
And is there even a difference of perception? Meaning, if you're in Japan and you're using a utensil to eat a bowl of soup, and in America we call that a spoon. They don't call it a spoon in Japan. Is it not still objectively the same object? Yet if you refer to it over as a spoon in Japan, they look at you like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
I don't even know what they call it in Japanese, but I know it's not spoon.
Yeah.
Right? It's not SPOON. But isn't it interesting how much division and how much lack of relationship people will choose because they are lost in the idea that their perception of any said category, of any said subject, is right. And if you happen to feel or see it or perceive it differently, they don't even mean to, but that's what creates us versus them.
Yeah.
And that is an illusion.
Right.
There is no such thing as us versus them. Because before you can cook up all these ideas and these labels and these perceptions and these concepts, one thing I know is true is you were human and I was human and every other person, a part of the 8 or 9 billion collective here on the planet, we were all human before we could play a role as a dad or be Hispanic or be married or be gay or be successful or be homeless or whatever we want to say is our role here in this earth suit, which is, by the way, an impermanent experience. Like the real me is not the role I play. The real me can't be what I'm called or what I'm referred as or what I'm labeled. That is just the infrastructure of the physical form of what is necessary for us to have life as we see it and as we experience it here on planet Earth. But the real me was me before I came into my Earth suit. And when I leave my Earth suit, the real me's still gonna be the real me. His name isn't Ryan. He's not Caucasian. You follow what I'm saying?
I'm with you.
So beyond the ideas of right and wrong, there is a field. And if you're interested in a better life, if you want a greater connection with the people you love, if you want to carve out a path to overcome some type of massive challenge. I've been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer twice in the last 8 years. No one could tell me, hey, if you just follow this exact path, it's guaranteed. 100%. You're going to live, you won't die, and everything's great, right? Because if that was the case, then we wouldn't have 2 million casualties every single year on planet Earth from cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
So guess what? I had to decide that I was going to do what I felt led to do, and I was going to carve out my own path. And at the same time, I had to accept that no matter how much I believed and how hard I tried and what path I took, the real possibility was I could still die. And you don't have to have a cancer diagnosis for that.
That's what I was just going to say.
For that reality to exist. I mean, for all I know, my wife's going to pick me up right after this podcast, and we're going to get T-boned in an intersection, and I'm going to be gone, and it's going to be another realm, whatever's next. And people are like, oh, don't even say that. And I'm like, but I'm not scared. Why are we all so scared? And I think it's because we don't know how to get out of that place in our mind that is the programming, the conditioning, the wiring, the opinions, the humanness, and step back and be more in like an observation seat where we go, there's a lot of ways to look at stuff. And I might, as I'm living my human life, I might resonate at time more with this particular viewpoint or this particular opinion. But unless you are causing harm to me, what's it to me?
Right.
Why do I care how you're choosing to go about your life? Why am I so damn self-righteous? And how am I so arrogant to actually think that my one filter of the billions of humans that have walked the earth and my one interpretation and my one way of seeing it is the exact way that it is? And don't words fall short anyway? Like, how do you really actually give language to experiences that you have?
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
Right.
Like, I don't really know what it's like to be Derek Legg or what it's been like to be on planet Earth for however many years you've been here and to live your life. You can try and describe the experiences you've had. You can share stories with me, and I can, on some level, through my own experiences, my own witness, get a glimpse maybe of what that's like. Yeah. But I really don't actually know.
I mean, it's still through your filter and what you've seen. That's interesting. So can give me an example or something that you've had to unpack since you've had this realization with maybe families, kids, friends, where, like, I guess what's sticking with me is where you said you almost have to be in observation mode. Can you give me anything that maybe pops in your head that just to connect some dots with people listening? Because like you were saying, sitting here live with you, I feel it. Like I've got tingles going down my legs, but...
Yeah, so let's just take, a lot of people have to deal with a cancer diagnosis, okay? What would be the right way to respond to that?
Yeah.
Do you just do what traditional medicine has to offer? Do you just listen to your oncologist? And do you just follow right in line and do exactly what they're saying? Do you take a more alternative route? Do you go and speak to like naturopath doctors? Do you only pursue options in the country that you're currently residing in? Do you consider options outside? Do you pray and ask a power, a force, a deity, a God outside of yourself to make it go away? And how much do you pray? And when do you pray? And what do you specifically say? And how do you know if that's going to work? And while you're waiting for that supposed prayer, let's say, to be answered, do you actually take any physical action? Or do you just sit and wait? Like, I think the reason why people gravitate to religions and they gravitate to people that we elevate in society, which might be like a pastor, a doctor, a politician, someone with letters behind their name, someone that's got a degree or has, been certified or been labeled as an expert because they've done maybe more training than just a regular human who's not pursuing that particular subject matter. And the reason is because what if you decide to go this way and you don't get a favorable outcome? But yet, most people don't seem to be willing to be honest. So right now in America, 90% of people who get diagnosed with stage 3 or stage 4 cancer, I had stage 4 lymphoma, they pass away within 5 years. Yet, probably 98% of people diagnosed with stage 3 or stage 4 cancer just do exactly what their oncologist and their doctors are telling them. Now, if you can step back and not need to be right, and if you can step back and objectively look at that, how does it make sense that people get so dogmatic? And they do. Because I had family members and people tell me I was crazy for taking a more alternative, naturopathic route, and that I was basically a complete idiot for not listening to my oncologist. But what they weren't thinking about is what they were saying is, Ryan, you have less than a 10% chance of seeing any of your kids graduate high school. But yet, you're an idiot if you don't follow that.
Right.
As if the world and the universe isn't so vast that the possibility that there might be another way that potentially had an even greater percentage than the one we just happen to know about. Yet I'm the crazy one when they're telling me there's no cure, the cancer's going to kill you, and maybe as fast as 2 to 3 months. And this is by the way, this is in October of 2015, Derek. I'm 35 years of age. I'm in the prime of my life. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We still are. It's so weird how I say that. Like as if I'm
past tense.
Yeah, but like we're 15 years in, now we're 23 years in, and our kids are 9, 5, and 3. We only had 3 at the time. Now we have 4. And yet I'm the crazy one because I'm like, well, what do I have to lose to go out here and explore? It's not like I'm turning down something where I've got an 80% efficacy of results that say like 8 out of 10 people, man, they crush this deal. It goes away and they're good for the next 3 or 4 decades.
Yeah. Well, it's like go back to our sports analogies. We were just pulling up sports stuff. I mean, if you're up to bat and they're telling you got a 90% chance of not hitting a home run and you have to hit a home run to live, are you swinging for the fences or are you just going to try and get a base hit?
Man, I love that.
Right? Like
so good.
If you've only got a 10% chance of winning anyway, why are you not swinging for the fences? I saw your tattoo on your wrist.
Which one?
Does it say YOLO on one of them, right?
You only live once.
So when you were telling me that, I looked at your wrist and I thought like, man, if that's not a slogan for you, I don't know what is. Because, I mean, what's that like? Let's kind of go into the cancer stuff if we can, dive in a little bit. What was that like getting that diagnosis? What was that like? Did you immediately have those thoughts of like, okay, there's other options here. There's not just a 90% chance of dying.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, thankfully, I became an entrepreneur and I got involved in a business and I actually walked away from college when I was 19. And being in that environment, that's where I got introduced to the idea that you could grow, that you could read books. Back then, I actually got introduced to listening to cassette tapes. That's where we were at in 99, 2000. Yeah. And so I have to believe that sent me down a path, and I was on a trajectory where I at least had enough awareness about what was possible, that when I got that diagnosis at 35, I mean, to be real frank, my first thought is cancer's picked on the wrong dude. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I ain't fucking dying. I mean, and I was absolutely determined. I mean, all my competitive juices came out. I'm going to prove people wrong. And although I have not remained in that energy, and I don't know that that's healthy energy to stay in long term, I think that energy actually served a great purpose as an initial response to being told, dude, you're going to die. And I'm like, we'll fucking see about that.
Right.
No offense, right? And I just decided that was their opinion. And I'm pretty sure I had been introduced, and I think I'd at least read the book, The Four Agreements, at least one time prior to my diagnosis. And now I've read it, I don't know, a dozen times, and I probably listened to it on Audible another 2 or 3 dozen times.
What's it called? Sorry.
The Four Agreements. It is.
So behind you is the 5 agreements.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Mallory's set up.
Oh, I love it.
I heard you say it earlier. I thought you'd like it.
So one of the 4 agreements is that you basically never take anything personal. So the way I look at it is, it was not personal that the oncologist was giving their educated opinion.
Yeah, it's
but
not
because
like he was like, you're so weak, it's only going to be 4 months. Right.
No.
Like there was nothing personal
based on
against you.
what he had experienced, based on what he knew about cancer, based on all the people that had been diagnosed either the same or similar to me. Like, he's not wrong.
Right.
Or she's not wrong. But it's still just an opinion.
Right.
Like, none of us know every detail and component about how anything is actually going to for sure turn out or work. So when I thought about it, I'm like, well, I just choose not to agree with that. It's like, no, it's not disrespect. It's like, you are free to have your opinion, and I am free to say, I think it could go differently.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could be wrong.
Sure.
I could think it's going to go differently, and I'm going to overcome it, and I could be dead right now. And I think because so many people haven't done their interior work, and I really hadn't either, but I got a destabilizing event that was staring me in the face. And basically the invitation from God, universe, source, spirit, consciousness, energy was, you're going to need to find a new way to be human, or you're going to be buried 6 feet under in a box. And I'm like, I choose door number 1. Let's go.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's not hard. It doesn't mean it hadn't been challenging. It doesn't mean I haven't been stubborn. It doesn't mean my ego at times is like, what the hell are we doing? But when you are presented with, see you later, kids are going to grow up without their dad, wife's going to be a widow in her 30s, they're going to have to navigate and face all of that without you, or you can go on a journey of unlearning everything that doesn't serve you well, and you can get exposed to a whole new way of being human. And the possibilities are your body will respond and heal itself, because that's what it's designed to do, and you have to trust the process. And you can't know ahead of time whether it'll work or not.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite things to just, when people are talking through scenarios or things that happen in life or choices I have to make, one of my favorite things to do to them is just saying, well, what's the alternative? And so it's like where you're talking about like, well, I was given months or a few years to live. So it's like, am I going to go down that route, or what's the alternative? And then where you're saying, well, so I sought out other things and this was an opinion. It's like, well, yeah, like what's the alternative? Die? Like, so you had to, in my eyes, it's like, yeah, you have to go seek something else out. Because
but many do not.
Right. And so that's
because they somehow buy into the concept that taking the route that they're the most familiar with, that seems the most comfortable, is the one that gives them the greatest chance of getting the outcome that they want.
Right.
And I would just say, I don't know if you're being objective about that. If you just took your emotions out of it and you actually looked at hardcore facts, you might realize that that's not actually accurate.
Yeah. Well, in the part where you said your wife was going to be a widow, I've seen your wife on the Solid podcast. I think she would have been okay. She probably would have found someone else.
She's pretty badass. Yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
No, it's true, right? And you know what I had to balance, Derek? I had to balance I remember, I don't know where I learned this, but I basically carried in my, let's just call it my right pocket, the truth was the universe and planet Earth and my family and everyone I would come in contact with, assuming I overcame cancer, needed me to make it and be here.
Yes.
And that was true. And then let's just say in my left pocket, what was also simultaneously true is that if I passed away, the universe and all of humanity was going to be just fine without me.
They would continue.
Yeah. And they would be telling jokes and eating mashed potatoes and going to the next baseball game probably hours, days, weeks after I was gone.
I mean, it's wild to look at it at, 30,000 foot view and view it that way.
That's it.
Yeah.
And today, I am vitally important to be here. And simultaneously, if I clocked out tonight, it'll all be okay.
Yeah.
So I live in that dance.
Yeah.
The dance of confidence mixed with humility. The dance that I really am extremely important and valuable to my spouse, to my kids, to everyone I come in contact with, to planet Earth, to whatever I'm putting my hands to. And simultaneously, it'll all keep going and somehow get where it needs to go, even if I'm not here in physical form. And I really think balancing that and dancing with that, and actually, again, one's not right and the other's not wrong.
Right.
It's a field. And the invitation from, again, God, life force, power, is will we rise in consciousness and enter a field and lay down and set aside our opinions and our conditioning and our programming and our points of view and stop being threatened by you seeing a subject matter different than me and start being fascinated and sit down and have a cup of coffee or a meal and say, I want to understand how you've arrived at the point you've arrived. Tell me about your mental journey, your psychological journey, your emotional journey. Why do you see it the way you see it? And what can I take in from that? And what can I sit with that will allow me to have greater empathy, will have greater connection and a greater perspective? Because if I'm just so quick to tell you that you're wrong, I may miss an opportunity to take in a piece of wisdom that could actually be an answer to helping me work through something or navigating a challenge that I haven't been able to work through. And it may come in a side door or a place I least expect it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love the podcast, is getting all these thoughts out there. And not only that, it's all recorded. So like I can go back and listen to what me and you talked about. I can have like a thought pop in my head of like, man, me and Ryan were talking about that. And what did he, and it's almost like you're saying you've read this same book multiple times, right? We can go back and reflect on some of these things. And I can go back 2 years ago and listen to podcasts that we did. And it seems like I'll accept it a different way every time you hear it. It's like, I'm going to, like my mom said this to me once years ago, and it was like, it's just not your season in a nutshell. It's kind of what she told me. Hey, you don't need to do all these things. Maybe it's not the season for one or two of these things. You need to be focusing on these things. In a nutshell, it's kind of what she was explaining to me. And I took that and thought, man, there's seasons for everything. And so when I hear this conversation now, it's hitting me one way. And then maybe a year from now, I come back and re-listen to it, and it's a whole nother way because I'm in a different season.
I couldn't agree more.
And, when you were talking about this, that cancer and all that, it made me, I've been open about this like the last year or two. I've always thought that I don't know why, but I always thought I was going to die young. And young is relative. I don't know,
Young
even
is
know what
relative.
young means, right?
That's true.
But I've always kind of had this thought of like, I need to do more when I'm younger because I'm not going to be around that long. And it's a weird thought to have. And so like the podcast was part of that. So when we had my son, this is like, I don't write in a diary. I've actually tried a few times recently, and I'll do a couple times and then I get off the habit on again. But this to me is that. I thought like, what's cooler than like, I don't know, maybe I live to be 100. I don't know. Say I don't. My son has 102 episodes. He can go on here and learn from his dad and his friends and see how I communicated with people, see how I, accepted. And most of the people that come in here, like me and you today, I met you here, right? So it's not like it's just me and my boys joking around. Like we have like real conversations with strangers that we can both sit here open-minded and accept each other, right? And so
Yeah,
I
and
thought,
there
like,
wouldn't be a single subject you couldn't bring up that I couldn't discuss.
Yeah.
Because I'm not lost anymore in the idea that these thoughts that come into my mind are somehow more accurate than the thoughts that are coming into your mind. And I'm very clear that most of the thoughts that even come into my mind aren't even mine. They were picked up along my journey of 43 years here on the planet. And more than likely, they're just an opinion from another human that may serve me well or may not. But they're pretty meaningless unless I attach meaning to them. So if I have a thought that a sunny day is a good day and a rainy day is a bad day, is that really actually true? Or is that just a concept that if I agree with it, then I will create a feeling and an experience based on the weather according to what I've decided it is? But if you decide that actually your best days are when it storms and when it rains, and for some reason you dislike the sun, haven't you essentially created the exact opposite experience from the same exact weather?
Right.
Which one of us is right?
Right.
So if people say, man, fuck cancer, screw cancer, cancer's terrible, it's evil, right? I hate cancer. Well, perhaps then that's exactly what you create it to be. And I say cancer is the greatest gift I have ever experienced or been handed or given in my entire time here. And I've had people downright get angry and say, "You can't say that, Ryan. That's bullshit. It ain't no fucking gift." And I say, well, it's not for you.
Right.
You are right. It's not a gift for you. But you don't get to dictate my perspective. And I'm not trying to dictate yours.
That's the difference.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Because beyond the ideas of right and wrong, there is a field, and I'll meet you there. You can share how you see things. You can give your point of view. I can listen and hear how you would describe why you think it's this way. But if you feel a right to control or manipulate then what I do with that, that's where we live differently. I have no interest in persuading or convincing anyone of anything. In fact, I think some people feel like I'm a maddening human because they want certainty.
Yep.
They want to be tethered to being right or being tethered to, I know I'm doing life well because I can measure it by these categories in this way. But if they were deeply, deeply honest, I think what they would discover is the thing that I dealt with from age 4 to age 35. And only through my cancer journey have I been able to work through it and let it go. And that was for 31 years. I never had a single day that I didn't feel like I wasn't good enough. And if you always are waking up every single day on some level, at least for an hour, a minute, a category, and you're thinking to yourself, I should be doing more. I should be better. And you reinforce that. Why should any of us be shocked then to discover we have some form of dis-ease? Because I was never at ease. I couldn't be. Because it didn't matter how much money I made. It didn't matter how many people affirmed that I had a great marriage. It didn't matter how well I was following some diet. It didn't matter how many accolades I won in business. It didn't matter whether my children were healthy. It didn't matter if I lived on the right street in the right part of town. It didn't matter if I drove the car that people thought I should drive. There was always a voice telling me, you're still blowing it. You still ain't good enough. You should be getting up earlier. You should be having more sex. It should feel like this. It should look like that. You're way behind so-and-so on your savings. You're not producing the way they are. Look at the leaders bulletin. Why don't you have 5 kids instead of 2 or 3? How does one escape that unless they discover it's a made-up idea in the first place?
Do you think that can serve you to an extent, though? And let me expound on that. I think that, because I've had that in my head too, but it's almost, I use that to push me. I use that to, I don't know, and I'm probably proving your point now that I think about it. I'm probably
I don't really have a point, by the way, so I'm just open to what you have to share.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I use that as fuel. I use that as fuel to work harder, to be a better dad, to be a better. And so can that be a positive, do you think, though?
I totally believe it can. Okay. I think it's all in how we want to use it, right?
Okay.
Can I simultaneously be content while still being open to ways that I could show up better? Like, I'm very satisfied with how far I've come in my pickleball game. And yet, just a week and a half ago, I invested money and time and a trip for my wife and I to spend 3 days to train with a pro. And you know what was interesting? My ego didn't like it for the first 2 hours. Because I've put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, and in many ways, I've done very well. I think a lot of people would even agree with that. And what he showed me was at just an even higher level. But because I have this awareness, it was like I can still feel good and proud and gratitude for how far I've already come, while simultaneously being excited about where I might be able to take it.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of being good enough anymore. It's just an interest in seeing how far I can take this human experience. Like, I'm really, really content and feel a lot of gratitude and very proud about a lot of things in my life. My marriage with my wife, Caroline. The way we choose to parent. How I've overcome some really tough things financially and in business. And yet simultaneously, I feel like I haven't even scratched the scratch. And I'm very excited and have a lot of enthusiasm about what levels we might be able to take ourselves, or what river may carry us to something we couldn't even imagine. So all you can do is all you can do, but all you can do is enough. And all you can be is all you can be, and all you can be is enough. And I am fully satisfied with who I am today, while simultaneously being super open to who I could become. And I can live in both of those truths, kind of like what I was saying about in one pocket, I'm really necessary here, and in the other pocket, I'm actually not.
Yeah, it's interesting to check in with each of those pockets and control that, or not even control, but just allow that balance to happen. And maybe it's a little bit of control. Maybe when you feel you're going one way, you can check in with the other. I don't know, whatever that balance is.
And I can't determine that for another.
Yeah, right.
But before, it was always, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
And today, it's, I am good enough, and I'm also still interested in improving.
Yes.
And being better. But I'm going to give it my all today based on what I currently know, what I currently understand, what I'm currently thinking I'm capable of. And that's the best I can do right now. And until I discover or have a revelation or learn something that shows me I can go beyond that, this is where I'm at. And I accept that. But I don't accept that I'm necessarily going to be here for the rest of my time.
Right. Nor should you be.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, nor should you be, as we're talking about. Everyone reads that situation different. But I had that conversation recently with one of my friends. He was talking about his wife and the changes that she's had to make recently. And he was struggling with the growth that she's had. And I was like, well, what's she supposed to do? Like, isn't change what she's supposed to do? She's not supposed to be that high school girl anymore. She should be growing. You should be growing. You have grown, but you're just recognizing her growth. And it's interesting how people get stuck in that. And I think and it's not even like she, in his eyes, that she was passing him in any way or anything like that. He was just uncomfortable with it. And I kept telling him, like, that's what she's supposed to do. Yeah, but this. Well, dude, that's what she's supposed to do. But this. And I'm like, this is a you thing, man. This isn't a her thing. Like, this is something that you're struggling with. This is an ego thing for you, right?
I think most of the time other humans are simply a mirror reflecting back something that is on the inside of us that maybe we need to take a look at. So much of the teaching in my life before I started expounding and exploring things outside of what I was shown in my upbringing was that, look, man, I mean, we are trained to look outside of ourselves for the solutions. And I found that the wisdom and the answers, they were right here. They were within me. I mean, somebody wrote in the ancient scriptures. So regardless of what anybody listening's opinion is around religion or which religion or what, but in the ancient scriptures that I was brought up under, somebody wrote down, because they thought it was this important to share their perception and their experience, thinking that it might benefit someone who would read it later. And what they wrote was that, be still and you will know. So their insight was the knowing came from stillness, silence, unplugging, not from busyness, searching everywhere, frantically running around, coming from the outside, begging, pleading, praying. No. Wisdom is a really kind gentleman, if you will. And so you have to put everything else on pause and you have to get quiet, and then you can hear the voice. And then the answers rise into the forefront of your awareness. And then you get a gut feeling, an inclination, or someone may say, I believe that's the Holy Spirit or my inner being or whatever.
Yeah, whatever you tie to that.
Yeah. But what if it's all a spoon? And it's just different parts of the planet have a different word or way of calling the same thing something.
Yeah. Tony Robbins has a breathing exercise that he does that. It's like, if you're really struggling with something and you can't move past it, or you're trying to figure out an answer to something, and he adds another thing to it where he covers your heart and you feel your heartbeat. And I mean, people can look it up if they want, but I mean, I've done it. Where it's just like, okay, stop, close your eyes. And like, for me, like, to get my brain to stop, I just try to picture black. Like, I try to view the color black, and that's the only way I can get my mind to slow down.
Sure.
And then, yeah, feel your heart, breathe. And I mean, you do it repetitively, and then you think, okay, what's the answer to this? And it's worked for me, and it hasn't worked for me. And I think the times it hasn't worked for me, I just wasn't still enough.
Well, how do you define it didn't work? I mean, was it because you didn't have an answer within an hour?
Exactly.
Was it a week? Was it a month? I mean, a year, a decade? Like, you're still here, bro. You're still alive. How do you know the answer isn't coming tonight on the drive home?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the times that it didn't happen. I just had to accept that, okay, like the way I would put it, this isn't the season. Like,
what if we could stay in tune in that? It's not like you have to just go and sit and be quiet all day, every day, and not live and be a human.
Yeah.
But what if stillness is like a way of being, a practice?
Okay.
Like a sense that if I want ESPN on at my house all the time, I have to set the tuner to connect to the frequency and the vibration through satellite or however it works to bring it in. If I don't do that, I can want ESPN like more than anybody else on the planet, and I'm not going to have it. Right?
Yeah, you're just going to be channel searching.
And no matter how hard I try, no matter how hard I strive, no matter how hard I beg, plead, pray, whatever it is, right? If I don't tune in to the frequency that brings ESPN to my television at my house, it ain't ever going to show up. So if we don't tune in to a frequency of openness and stillness and trust, that in perfect timing, answers and reasoning and wisdom will just simply show up in any imaginable way, at any imaginable time, through any imaginable source, then if you stay tuned into that, guess what just keeps happening over and over and over again? And you know what I say the greatest response to that happening over and over and over again? Unbelievable amounts of gratitude. Like, wow, this is really cool. Man, I get to be a human. I'm not a piece of sheet metal. I'm not a tree. I'm not even an animal. I get to be in physical form with what we would consider the greatest species to ever exist in this time, realm, and space. And I mean, I literally am like this, Derek, now, like all the time.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, I owe a debt of gratitude for a near-death experience, because 2.5 years, it didn't look like I was going to make it. I lost 50 pounds. I was in and out of the ER 50 plus times. I went to multiple countries. I had to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for all this alternative stuff. I got rid of it one time, and then it came back, and it was worse. I tried conventional. I tried alternative. I tried a combination of both. And then somehow, some way, these deep revelations, this idea that it was being sourced from my own uneasiness, this revelation that if I could learn how to not be a slave to my mind, and I could learn how to practice being at ease, which doesn't mean I'm controlling my circumstances, which doesn't mean everything just works the way I always want it to, but I could just be okay and make peace with all of it, that then maybe my body and my physiological aspect of my human earth suit could chill out and not need to produce cancer. And for me, I'm so grateful and I'm so fortunate, and I truly am blessed, lucky, whatever you want to call it. And I don't take it for granted. I've been cancer-free over 5 years. I haven't seen a doctor or an oncologist or had a scan since early 2018. Because for me, if I really thought something was seriously wrong again, sure, I'd go get checked out. But in the meantime, I don't want to be having scan anxiety.
Right.
Or going and trying to find something that's not there.
Right.
And I practice being my own health advocate. I practice being in tune with my body, myself, my mind, my heart, my soul. And I just trust that there'd be indicators going off if something needed to be looked at. And so for the most part, I'm not focused on not dying. I'm focused on being fully alive and living, knowing that I don't know exactly how much time I'll have.
And you accept that.
And I accept that. Doesn't mean I want to go anytime soon.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm not wanting to be here for a really long time and see all my kids grow up and have grandkids. I'd love to experience anything and everything I possibly can. But I don't get the final say on that. And I'm not in total control. And for me, that's not a lack of faith or belief, because I know a lot of people have these interesting opinions on how they know how long they're going to live. And okay, maybe you do. I don't necessarily feel that. I'm always accepting of the reality that as much as I have this sense like I'm going to be here for a long time, I might not. So what can I control? Was I present today? Did I show up in the way I wanted to with my kids and my wife? Was I fully present on this podcast? Or was I letting my mind take me somewhere I can't even be? Because right now, the only place I can be is right here with you, Derek.
Yeah. With
these two mics in this room at Bloomform Media's studio. I cannot be anywhere else. I can't be at dinner with my family. I've got him in my heart because I take him everywhere I go. But when I'm with them, I can't be with you.
Right. Even though you're thinking about me, obviously, all the
I
time.
do a lot, man. And now that I've met you in person, it's going to be even more challenging, right? I mean, you're extremely attractive.
Stop.
I mean, you've got such a phenomenal personality.
Sorry,
But
I
in
just
all
have to break
seriousness,
things up
no,
every
it's
now and
good, man. I love it, right? No, hopefully we become great friends. And
Yeah, no, I for sure. I want to talk about two more things. We're almost at time, so I'll
Okay.
talk about two more things.
okay.
First, Caroline, how did she accept this? How did she move forward? How did she support you? How did you support? Like, can you talk about anything come to mind on that? Just and maybe brag about her a little bit because I'm sure she went through quite a
man.
bit.
I mean, look, she gets on my nerves. I mean,
I said
We're-
brag about her.
I know. Well, I just thought I'd give that as a preface it because I'm getting ready to tell you how ineffable she is. I mean, let's just break it down. I mean, first of all, like, she's married to me. Like, I mean, I can be a maddening human in the sense of, like, I don't know why I'm the way I am, in the sense of, like, I question pretty much everything. I'm open to exploring stuff to kind of like an nth degree. I'm totally open to new ways of seeing the world, new ideas, new concepts. I mean, I like talking about every kind of subject matter you can think of, including all the ones that are like taboo or people are afraid to discuss. I'm like, those are the ones I really want to talk about.
Yeah.
Then. So she's been with me now over 27 years. We met in high school. And I mean, just to kind of give you a rundown, I mean, I committed infidelity on her 4th year of marriage. We got married in 2000. That happened in 2004. She decided to stick with me. We didn't have kids yet. She could have easily walked away. We've moved, if you count every house, every apartment, every place we've lived, in the last 23 years, we've moved like 21 times.
Wow.
Which is just insane.
Yeah.
Okay, right? We have 4 children. She's given me 4 children between 17 years old, almost 18, down to 19 months. And she had a really hard miscarriage in between child 2 and 3. I drug her through bankruptcy in 2009. And we went from making $20,000 a month in business and having a really great, comfortable life to food stamps and 1 car and not able to pay rent and living with family with 2 children in our 30s. I had a 10-year gambling addiction from 2003 to 2010 and lied and lost tons of money and put our family through a lot of extra financial suffering that wasn't necessary. I wrote a suicide note in 2009. I've changed careers more times than I feel like I've changed underwear. I've had to reinvent myself. And then after all of that, she got handed a diagnosis of her life partner, her husband, you know, the one that she had been with at that time for 18, 19 years. And I'm being told I got maybe a few months to live. And then I go through stage 4 cancer for 2.5 years, and who's right there by my side every step of the way, researching, reading, trying to learn about, understanding, holding up the household, supporting me, helping me do over 600 coffee enemas, you know, staying up after I've already fallen asleep to organize all my supplements that I got to take the next day, still being a mom. Like, I mean, she's a saint, man.
Yeah, what else do you say?
She's a queen. And I don't even know sometimes when she gets asked this question if she even can really give an answer as to how has she in the world done that.
Yeah.
And yet today, I really believe if we had her friends and people that know her on this podcast tonight, you know how they describe her? She's happy. She's joy-filled. She's easy to be around. You just can't help but not like her. She's beautiful inside and out. She's loyal. She's a great friend. She's a wonderful organizer. Our kids adore her. And I'm madly in love with her.
That's awesome.
And it took all of that hell to be experiencing a little slice of heaven like we are today. And I can't even, how do I say thank you to her?
Yeah.
And yet what I tell her all the time is, if you wake up tomorrow and you don't want to be with me anymore, I would be devastated. But I only want you to be with me because you want to. Like, I will not settle for anything less than the real thing. So I don't want you to be here because of fear or control or because you just don't think you have any other options. And so every day I think about the fact that if she wakes up and says, yeah, let's do this adventure together again, God, man, the fucking luckiest guy ever, bro.
I love that. I think we just wrap it up right there, man. I think that's the bow. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here, being super open. You said you guys, I don't know if we can put this on the air. You guys may or may not be moving here.
The cat's out of the bag.
You guys, I mean, can we talk about that or no?
I mean, we do. It is on the table. We really love Utah. And we really love nature. Like, we had a stretch a few years ago after I overcame cancer the first time. We bought an RV, sold our house, and we lived on the road for 2 years. And essentially, we at least drove through all 50 states. And we fell in love with hiking and camping and going to national parks. And so, yeah, we do feel like maybe we're being drawn here in the sense of it checks a lot of boxes for just things we really get a lot of satisfaction from. So we're exploring it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 4 kids and, we love our family and a lot of them live in that area. So we'll just have to see what happens, but it's definitely a strong possibility. And, but we just want to make sure that we're doing it for all the reasons that really matter most to us, And again, we won't really know if we love it unless we do it. And we tell ourselves it's not an irrevocable decision. You could always go back or change your mind. But I think it'll probably unfold just because we tend to live more under the question of why not? Mm-hmm. And if we can't come up with a really good reason, then we should probably go for it. Because otherwise we'll always wonder.
Yeah.
Well,
I bring that up because I'm like, hopefully we see some more of you.
It'd be fun, man.
So
It'd be fun.
Again, appreciate you coming. This is Ryan Lelf.
Yes.
Lelf. Why does it sound so weird to say?
It's German, you know what I mean?
Because it's not English, I guess.
Yeah, and if you're looking for me, it looks like Luelf because it's spelled Luelf as in Frank, but it's pronounced Lelf, like self. And if it's okay, my friend Jake Stringer and I, Derek, just launched our own podcast. We've got 5 episodes out. We just recorded number 6 actually here in Utah at the Blue Forum Media Studio yesterday, and it's called A Podcast for Humans.
Love it.
So if anyone wants to check it out, man, it's pretty cool.
I'm glad you brought it up because I said 2 things and then I talked about your wife and you just blanked me. But that was the second thing is I wanted to mention your podcast on here too.
Oh, well, thank you.
And that's on...
it's on Podbeam and Apple Podcast currently, and we're waiting to be approved on Spotify.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about, do you have social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is my number one place that I am on and interact, and you can just find me at Ryan Luelf. Yeah. I think there's actually one other human that I found on there that's name is Ryan Lelf.
Really?
But it'll be very obvious. You'll see a picture of my wife, Caroline, and all of our children on my profile and my cover photo, and you'll see I've overcome cancer, and I love pickleball and that. So
awesome. Yeah. Okay, guys, go follow Ryan. And look for him on the other podcast that Blue Form does. He's kind of doing what Blue Form calls the Blue Form circuit. So he's been
fun, man.
Been here all week recording. So and thanks for taking some time. I know your family's at dinner. So I'm going to let you get out of here. And we're just under an hour 20, so we did all right.
It was great, man. I mean this. I'm really honored. Thank you for having me. It's always a blessing to meet new people. I don't take it for granted. So appreciate you so much.
Yeah, we're going to check in with you down the road too. And if you're here, we'll bring you back on. I like the in-person stuff. So we'll see how that unfolds with your guys' life.
I love it.
All right, guys, that's episode 102. Ryan Lelf. And like, share, comment, go follow Ryan, follow his podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.